Welcome back to From Code to Cure, the webinar series from Ainnocence, where we tackle the big questions at the intersection of AI and biotech. Today's episode is a very tough topic. Why do 90% of AI-designed drugs still fail? My name is Kevin, and with me is Dr. Pan, founder and CEO of Ainnocence.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I think the statistics of 90% is probably a little bit outdated, but let's say that in order to validate if a drug is successful or failed, it takes about 10 years. So basically, we're talking about the AI 10 years ago that designed a medicine, and then we test it now to see if it's successful or not, which would be 90% is failing rate, kind of about average of any medicine with or without AI that has that similar statistics. But if we're talking about the AI nowadays that has been, for example, the AI today, and then we design a drug and see how it would be successful or not in 10 years later, I would probably say that percentage is better than, right now. So on average, like small molecule success rate is 6% and antibody is about 12%, which is with or without AI anyway. But now we will hopefully, if we use AI correctly and with AI and in the nowadays level of efficiency and proficiency of AI tools, hopefully we can at least move that numbers a little better in the coming 10 years. And also AI has evolved drastically in the past 10 years. So the AI in 10 years ago is definitely different than AI right now. I would say I could totally see that they from early discovery to clinical study, AI already help design much better medicine today than in 10 years ago. But how good it is, I don't, we'll have to wait 10 years to get the real statistics.
Yeah, that's a great introduction. And before we move further, I just want to tell our audience that this episode is being pre-recorded, but we also want to hear your thoughts. So please drop any thoughts, questions, or comments in the comments section, and we'll be reading and responding to all of your questions. And so let's move on about the promise and outcomes of AI. So you've mentioned that previously the AI that was used was from maybe around 10 years ago. Maybe let's talk about those technologies from 10 years ago. And then let's also talk about what the current AI situation is.
Yeah, definitely. So I think in 10 years ago, we don't really have a true AI in our drug discovery process. We just call it computer-aided drug design, which we leverage some computational methods such as quantum mechanics, molecular mechanics, and some machine learning to help predict the outcome of designed molecule better. By the time, due to the limitation of the technology, we can't screen in very vast chemical space and we can't really predict comprehensive pharmacology profile accurately. So at the time, I would say most of the drug discovery the computational methods are only address, let's say, probably 5 to 10% of the problem of the drug discovery. And nowadays, in terms of molecule design, I would say the tools and also all the efficiency accuracy is much better than the past. But still, there's one thing that hindered the fundamental success rate of drug discovery is the target identification, which it hasn't really changed that much in 10 years. So we're still lost in the puzzle of which therapeutic targets related to which disease and among all the discoveries of all the biomarkers and potential drug candidate, potential therapeutic target, we still don't know which one is the essential one and what's the best strategy to treat that disease by targeting one or more target. This is still lack of bioinformatics foundation to really build a sensible target discovery models, even till right now. So that's the kind of what I say about the status of this field.
Yeah, so maybe to summarize that, so mostly drug discovery is still biology and target based. However, some of the AI is still, there's a lot of shortcomings in terms of target identification or biological drug discovery. Mostly the AI, including CADD, computer aided drug discovery, is mostly to predict chemical properties and not the full biological complexities of the drug discovery. So is that where the 90% failure rate factors in, or is there also clinical factors as well?
Yeah, like the 90% failure rate definitely including clinical fail, which means the ultimate fail, which means phase three failure or even earlier. And of course, we would say that still nowadays AI cannot really accurately predict clinical outcome. It might be really already accurately predict in vitro properties, no matter chemical or biological level, but in vivo as a physiological whole body outcome, I would still doubt the current AI models able to do that accurately. And that's why it hasn't been impacted the success rate of clinical trial like significantly yet.
Yeah, so ultimately, still the question is because of the clinical findings and also the preclinical limitations, are the AI discovered drugs fundamentally flawed or are they actually facing the same challenges as traditionally discovered drugs?
So I don't think they're fundamentally flawed. They might just be imperfect. And also, traditionally discovered drug is also a type of random screening in a random space. So, in order for a drug to completely successful, it has to satisfy many dimensions of properties, and they all have to be perfectly scored at the same time in order to be successful. So, even 1% is not perfect, it will fail the final clinical examination. So we would just say that no matter AI designed or translationally screened, is still not yet to the degree of perfection. But the AI process definitely reduced the cost and time for the drug screening process.
So let's dive a little deeper. You mentioned that AI will definitely speed things up. So can you give some examples? Because, traditionally discovered drugs, some of them are based on expertise. However, AI can speed up things in the front end. So maybe there's ways that AI can speed up this process. So can you give us a couple examples of how this can be done?
Yeah, definitely. So most of the AI models predict some type of properties of a drug, which in traditionally most of those properties are not be able to be predicted by medicinal chemists when they design medicine, or it has to be screened completely from wet lab. So in that case, in the past, we have to screening hundreds, thousands, or even millions of possible random chemical space. But now AI could do that virtually first, and then you only need to test like dozens of them. That's a significant reduced cost and time. And we already have a lot of data available, especially in vitro assays, that we could definitely eliminate the large screening part of those in vitro assays by replacing AI as the first line of work.
Yeah, that's a very good example of how AI can speed up all the entire drug discovery process. Okay, so there's been a gold rush in AI drug discovery. So is the field overpromising recently? What's the recent status for AI drug discovery?
Definitely, I think there's the bubble because I think most of the team that was less experienced in drug discovery, of course, probably more experienced in AI modeling or whatever, think they could solving the problem of drug discovery with just one extraordinary model. But it's not the reality. Most of the publication and fundraise pitch, they only emphasize on a single domain optimization or just certain advantage of certain model. But drug discovery, I said earlier, is a model objective optimization process. If any of the objective is not fully optimized, you have to do 10 subject. Every one of them has to be score 100 to get to the final line. But if you just do one very good, it doesn't mean anything to the final outcome. But I think most of the young companies, especially those who are not experiencing the entire cycle of drug discovery, often make that mistake and overpromise what their tools or their model can do.
Yeah, so do you think this hype or this overpromise is actually slowing down the meaningful progress of drug discovery using the AI methods?
If it's overhyped, definitely, because it would misleading people using tools that's not do what they're doing and waste the time and resource for wet lab validation that's on the forced assumption. So I think it's a well-planned and also where a thorough thought scientific process that involves AI would definitely be a good way to do. Also, we shouldn't have inflated expectation on just a small breakthrough in one aspect of the property prediction. Instead, we need to see it as a whole picture. And also, I think there's one criteria everybody should always calculate is what is real cost look like involve AI or not involve AI. If your computational cost is actually more than your wet lab experiment process, and also in the long run is still never going to reduce, and then it's not a good way to use AI because it does not really improve the original industry process.
Yeah, so what would you say to the companies entering this space now?
Yeah, I think don't just build models, build science. Focus on how you validate your model from multiple pharmacology perspective as a multi-objective problem rather than a single objective problem. And also work with domain experts and work with people from different backgrounds, especially in medicine and molecular biology, to really examine the scientific validity of your model, not just build a model from algorithm mathematics perspective optimization.
And so I just want to build on this in terms of just using AI models or using mathematical models. Yeah, you've mentioned that you have to understand the ROI or return on investment of what computation actually brings to the table for drug discovery. So if we're spending more money on computation rather than a wet lab, it's maybe not worth it. So can you give some examples of what types of AI models will cost more or what types of AI models are more efficient?
Yeah, definitely. So, for example, right now, three is very popular. However, it will be a good methods to use that as a initial structural modeling and functional understanding and to figure out the structure and function relations. But it would be too expensive to use that for virtual screening if you want to compute billions of ligand and structural binding conformations. So it's just not going to be economic and it would be abuse of computational power. I think there's definitely smarter way. Other deep learning model may works even better for large screening in a very focused manner. So yeah, there's just one example.
Yeah, so let's turn this around. What's Ainnocence doing differently to reduce the 90% failure rate? And what's Ainnocence doing to speed up the AI-based drug discovery?
Yeah, first of all, we're trying to build our model as comprehensive as possible, which means we're trying to cover all aspect of efficacy and also other pharmacology effect to make sure a molecule is at least in virtual space is perfectly screened before it goes to any in vitro or in vivo validation. This is the best we can do using multi-objective optimization. And also, in terms of different technology, we currently trying to expand as large coverage of our screening, no matter from the target space, such as on target and all the off target that could possibly happen in vivo, and also as many in vivo models as possible, and also at the same time, as many as chemical space as possible. In order to do so, it's almost impossible for traditional CADD methods to screen even more than like millions of chemical space, but using our proprietary technology of advanced algorithm and data, we'll be able to screen billions in a few hours up to days. So it significantly enhanced the scalability of the screening in terms of in vivo biology complexity and also the different available chemical space as well.
And are there any early signals that this approach is actually working? How many early hits do we have in terms of drug discovery hit rates and stuff?
So yeah, in terms of the gaps between the prediction and wet lab, let's just do the numbers. So in the past, the random screening is 1 out of 10,000 to 100,000 of hit rate. And then in the CDD time, and like 10 years ago, it's about 1 out of 100 as the hit rate. And now we can do almost all the project 1 out of 10 or even more. That is the improvement of how we bridging the gap between prediction and wet lab.
Yeah, that's a very significant hit rate increase. So my next question is, if we had to name the top three things that need to change for AI designed drugs to succeed more often, what are they?
Yeah, the top three things. One is better data and also better biologic context and strong collaboration. I can elaborate them one by one. So better data, of course, we need to integrate more data and make sure they're also high quality so that the AI model could be nurtured by those high quality data with more accurate results. And about better biological context is every drug discovery project has its very unique biologic pathological context that require very specific objectives of optimization. There are almost no universal standards for how a drug should be designed or optimized for different diseases. Different disease should always be different. So in that case, we have to set the optimization goals for the AI that be able to exactly match that biologic context. And the third one is collaboration between the computational team and experiment team, because most of the project, in order to be completely successful, we need to do several rounds of reinforcement learning iteration, which even small amount of wet lab feedback from the earlier rounds of computation could significantly boost the next rounds of accuracy.
So do you think the failure rates will drop significantly in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I definitely believe so. For example, in the phase one study in the next 10 years, already increased from 20% success rate to 80% success rate, which means the computational methods before we're trying to do phase one, including dose projection and other related means, is already effectively impact the clinical outcome. So I do believe currently the AI is better and we will design better, more high probability medicine in the next 5 years and be able to even succeed the clinical stage 2 and 3.
Okay, so yeah, so overall AI is powerful, but it's not a magic wand. So if you're watching and have thoughts about why drugs fail or how to fix it, drop a comment. We want this to be a conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, one of the service that Ainnocence provide is to rescue the failed project, and no matter it's failed in the preclinical stage or clinical stage, which means the current medicine has certain limitations, hasn't exceeds the final clinical validation. We'll be able to apply AI to optimize one or more of those failed properties and to resend your pipeline back to the right track with very efficient process and very economic cost. So yeah, we welcome everybody to share your thoughts on how to improve AI and what's the problem of AI. And we wanted this to be completely honest and with open collaboration.
Okay, so thanks for joining us for another episode of From Code to Cure. We'll see you next time.